This is Kevin Harrington, original shark from Shark Tank, inventor of the infomercial, and you're listening to Jamy Bechler from Success is a Choice.
Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Welcome to Success is a Choice podcast. I'm your host, Jamy Bechler, and we are very honored today to have the Pitbull of Personal Development on the show. Larry Winget has spoken to nearly 400 of the Fortune 500 companies and is in the International Speakers Hall of Fame. He has also hosted his own show on A&E. Larry is a Wall Street Journal and New York best-selling author and has some amazing books with some cool titles, such as Grow a Pair, Shut Up, Stop Whining and Get a Life, and You're Broke Because You Want to Be. It's great to have Larry Winget with us today. Larry, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me.
Hey, absolutely. I'd love for you to share some highlights or fill in the gaps. I just mentioned a whole bunch of stuff that you've done, but kind of tell us a little bit about your journey and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Well, I got to where I am today because I worked my ass off. That's how I got here. Hard work got me here. I started out dirt poor. I grew up in Muskogee, Oklahoma. My folks didn't have very much, and I learned early on, and what they taught me was if you want to do well in life, you're going to have to outwork everybody else, and that's what I've always been willing to do, is outwork everybody else. I was one of the very first male telephone operators for Southwestern Bell back in the day when I went to college. Got out, worked for them for many, many years. I started as a telephone operator. I left as the area sales manager for AT&T, and then started my own little telecommunications company. Did real well. Went to work one day, and the Corporation Commission ruled what I did was no longer going to be legal in the state of Oklahoma, and that I was out of business. So I went to work a rich guy and came home broke, bankrupt, lost everything I had. So I decided what I really wanted to do. All I'd ever wanted my whole life was an audience anyway, so I decided to be a speaker. Didn't really know anything about it, but again, I went back to that whole I can outwork anybody. And, I became a professional speaker, started out as a sales trainer, found out people thought I was funny, found out they pay you more to make people laugh than to teach them how to sell. So for a few years, I was your typical motivational, humorous kind of guy. About 17, 18 years ago, I got sick of all that and decided that wasn't what I wanted to say at all, and I started telling people the truth, which is if your life sucks, it's because you suck. Everything in your life's your own damn fault. Take responsibility for it, fix it. And that message was something people really resonated with, and it was really contradictory to what was going on in the self-help movement at the time. And then I went out and wrote a #1 bestseller called Shut Up, Stop Whining and Get a Life. Got a television show, wrote 6 more New York Times, Wall Street Journal bestsellers, and, just with all that, here I am today. Now I'm on several television news programs doing commentary on parenting and business and the wussification of America and money and all that stuff, and this is what I do.
Well, the name of this podcast is Success is a Choice, and it really could be called Failure is a Choice as well. I imagine that you have some ideas about how important decision-making and making choices are, and you talk about that in a lot of your books. Talk a little bit about, if you would, just choices that people make. Why is that important?
Well, I think everything is a choice. Even the lack of a decision is a decision. And so you got to get out in front of that and try to control your decisions as best you can. And I think you ought to make lots of decisions. I see people who are frozen because they're afraid to make a decision. And what you have to understand is it's not about making the right decision. It's about making the decision and then making the decision right. That's an important thing right there I just said. It's not about making the right decision. It's about making the decision and then doing whatever it takes to make that decision right. And that's what people need to understand if they really want to move along, is that we can sit around and do all this analysis. There's that old cliche, paralysis by analysis, trying to figure out, is this going to be the right thing or not? Who the hell cares? Just do something. Even if it's the wrong decision, you'll find out quicker. You know, as long as you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same results. I try everything different. People say, well, what should I do next, Larry? I don't care, but do something differently than you have been to create a different result than you've been getting. That's how you make change in your life. And that's always up to you, not somebody else. Don't let somebody else make all your choices for you. You get out there and take control of it.
Well, your first book, you talked about Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life, a kick-butt approach to a better life. You know, you also mentioned the wussification of America.
Yep.
What do you see? Why is this a problem?
Well, we got in this. My first book, Shut Up, Stop Whining, Get a Life, is just like all my books. I look at what's going on in society and what really ticks me off, and that's what I write a book about. My first big bestseller just happened to be Shut Up, Stop Whining, and Get a Life. And at the time, what was ticking me off the most with that one was all of the silliness that was going on in my own industry, where people were saying, you know, just feel really good about yourself and you can do anything. No, why don't you get a little ticked off at yourself? Why don't you get mad at yourself? You're being an idiot. Stop doing that. And then so I took on all the motivational cliches of the time and said, here's the truth about things. Stop worrying about having a positive attitude. Get negative about your life and create some positive change in your life. And so that was the approach to that one. But what happened with the self-help movement and all of this new age thinking and all of this coddling that we've done to our kids and to the rest of society is we stopped holding people accountable and stopped forcing some personal responsibility on folks and imposing consequences on their behavior. And when we did that, what we did was create an entitled society that believes that they deserve everything good to be handed to them, and we got away from the work side of things. And that's how we created this society that we now are stuck in, and I think is really dangerous place where we are right now in society, where people are so looking to be offended every single day. They wake up offended. They don't want to get their feelings hurt. They don't want to work very hard. They want everything handed to them. They want the government and the school system and everything given to them. And that's why we're in the mess that we are, all because of the lack of consequences and lack of forcing people to be accountable and responsible for the decisions, the choices, as you like to say, that they make.
And building on that, one of your other books called Grow a Pair.
Yeah.
Stop being a victim, take back your life, your business, and your sanity. Piggybacking on what you just said, you know, people are always looking to place the blame elsewhere or play the victim role. Why is it that we're rewarding people that are victims now, it seems like?
Well, it's we think somehow that's the loving thing to do. When you look at parenting, we think it's more loving. We have a new generation of parents that think the loving thing to do is not impose consequences on their kids, but to love them out of their mistakes. And we don't understand that that's child abuse. You must hold your child accountable. We must hold people accountable. We must allow them to feel the pain of their mistakes and their bad decisions so they won't do them again. If there's no pain for doing something stupid, then you will continue to do something stupid. And we have a society, look what happened during the housing crisis. There was no downside to buying a house that was more than you could afford. You knew you couldn't afford it when you bought it. There was no downside to it, though, because the government was going to create a system that would bail you out of that. They were not going to force you to go into bankruptcy. In most cases, you got to stay in your home that you couldn't afford. Don't worry, your neighbor next to you, he bought the same house, and he's working his butt off to make his payments, but you get to go to the government, and the government will help you with yours or get you out of your deal, but you don't have to go away. You just get to live there. Now, that was not fair, and we taught people that it was okay to have unfair treatment for our own stupidity and our own mistakes. That's how we got in the situation we're in. You mentioned the book Grow a Pair. Grow a Pair is about the fact that we have a group of people, most folks, as a matter of fact, who are not willing to stand up for what they believe. In fact, they don't even know what they believe. That's why I'm such an anomaly at this point in society. People are willing to stand up and say what they believe, and they don't really give a damn what anybody thinks about it. I don't care what people like what I have to say or not. I know what I believe, and I'm not afraid to say it. And I'll stand for my principles and my values. And that's what that book is about, identifying what you believe in, stand up for those things, and don't apologize and back down just because somebody else doesn't agree with you. You know, that's why I wrote a new book. My newest book is called What's Wrong with Damn Near Everything, and it's about the collapse of core values in our society, and that's really what it always comes down to.
What are some of those core values that we're losing sight of in America?
Honesty. Let's start there. That's a big one with me. It's my number one core value. Nobody gets a chance to lie to me twice. Nobody. I'll cut you off the knees and we'll never talk again. That's how it works with me. You can do anything in the world to me and we'll be fine. But if you lie to me or if you're dishonest with me, I'm done. I won't tolerate dishonesty from anyone. I don't care who it is. And yet, if we say honesty is a really important value. If you ask the average person in America, how do you feel about honesty? Oh, you absolutely believe in honesty. Really? 26% of you cheat on your taxes. You're dishonest. 26% of you are liars. You cheat. You're dishonest. See, we talk a good game around honesty, but we don't practice it. Look at the 2016 elections, and this is not about politics. This is about honesty. This is about core values. If we really valued honesty in America, we wouldn't have had either one of those candidates. So we say we love honesty, but we don't. So you have honesty, integrity. Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking. Work ethic. Goodness gracious, our work ethic has gone to hell in the handbasket. It really has. Work ethic, standing up for yourself, standing up for what's right, doing the right thing all the time. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. Self-reliance is a core value instead of other reliance or government reliance or parental reliance. Stand up for yourself and take care of yourself. Those are the kind of things I'm talking about, and that's what's gone wrong in society, and that's why we're in the mess that we're in today.
Well, in Enron's letter, annual report to the shareholders, they talked about integrity as being one of their core values.
Yep, we can talk about it all we want to. We don't practice it very much, though, do we?
No, we don't. Speaking of finances and being broke, you wrote a great book. You're broke because you want to be. And you mentioned you grew up poor, then you made a fortune, then you lost a fortune, and now you're rich again. So
yep.
Talk a little bit about those choices.
You know, you want to tick people off and you want to find out how honest people are, start talking about money. If there's one place everybody will lie to you about, it's money. How much they got, how much they don't have, what it took to earn it, all that stuff. People don't like to get real honest about their money. And when I wrote a book called You're Broke Because You Want to Be, that really drove people nuts. They were saying, no, I don't want to be broke. I always put it right back on of course you do. You want to be broke, otherwise you wouldn't be broke. You don't need 7 HBOs, 6 Showtimes, 7 Stars check. You don't need that. You've decided that's necessary to your life. You don't need that. When you look at your expenses, most of those things you could cut out. See, there's only 2 ways to have more money. That's earn more and spend less. That's it. There's only 2 ways to have more money. And hopefully it's the combination of those 2 things that will make you have more money. Everybody needs to go out and figure out how to earn more, and there's always a way to earn more money. But you also need to spend less. We have the dumbest human beings on earth right now spending money on things that are no more necessary. It's incredible to me what kinds of things people spend money on. We have whole shopping networks on TV full of dumb stuff where people stay up late and get that credit card out. And then we end up with an average credit card bill of every household in America running about $15,000 with an average interest rate of around 17 to 22%. That's dumb. And there's no excuse for that. People got to get, they always want to say, well, I'd like to know, Larry, about investments. I get a lot of questions about that because I had a finance show and I do a lot of finance commentary on TV. And they always say, I want to know about investments. And I say, do you have a credit card? Well, yes. Do you have any credit card debt? Well, yeah, I do. I said, let me give you the best return on investment you'll ever have. Pay off your credit card debt. That's the highest return on your money you'll ever find. You're not going to make 19% in the market. You might as well go pay off your credit card debt. That'll be the best 19% return on your money you're ever going to get right there. But people never had much financial training, and that's what parents have done to let their kids down. That's where they failed. Kids don't know how to spend money. They don't know how to save money. They don't know how to invest money. They don't know how to be charitable with their money. We need some financial literacy training in our country.
Dave Ramsey, the talk show host, he has a line. He says, we spend money we don't have to buy things we don't need to impress people we don't like.
That's absolutely right. He didn't write that, by the way, but he's right about that. I know Dave pretty well, but that is a line that people need to remember, and it is absolutely true.
Well, you probably saw that a lot when you were doing, we mentioned you hosted an A&E show called Big Spender.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? And I'm sure you were banging your head against the wall, just shaking it all the time at the stupidity of some people with their money.
You know, that experience was one of the most interesting experiences I ever had. I never, first of all, you always have a big spender. That was what that show was about. But there was also a big enabler. There was always somebody who said, some mother who would tell her daughter, oh, honey, that looks good on you. Go ahead and buy it. Not considering the fact that the daughter was, I had one woman, $600,000 in credit card debt. That's a lot of money. Over $500,000 in credit card debt on 60 credit cards. That's stupid. So you have big spenders and you have big enablers, but what's amazing to me is what people believe, and it sort of goes back to what I said a moment ago, that they cannot live without. They can't live without cable TV. I had one woman, I told her she was going to have to give up those 4 HBOs and all that stuff, and she broke down sobbing, and she said, I can't. And I said, really, lady, you're that emotional about giving up a TV channel? Really? But that's how sad we've become. It really is. All people need to remember, you know, finance is really easy. I watched a television commercial for CNBC. I shot a show for them with a couple other guys called The Millionaire Inside, and it said, here are 4 of the country's leading money gurus. And it mentioned me, and I was a little amazed that I had become a money guru. And a guy was interviewing me and said, Larry, how did you become a money guru? I said, you know, I'm not really sure how that happened or if I am. Pretty much all I got is spend less money than you earn. And because of that, suddenly I'm a guru. And that's what it comes down to. Spend less money than you earn. But 47% of society spends more money than they earn.
We'll get right back to this great interview with the Pitbull of Personal Development in a moment. As we've been talking about, Larry has a bunch of great books that just tell it like it is. Now you can listen to one of his books for free. Our friends at Audible are offering our listeners a free audiobook download through the website audibletrial.com/success is a choice. From there, you can just type in Larry Winget in the search bar and find all of his great bestsellers. Once again, that address to get a free download is audibletrial.com/success is a choice. And now back to our conversation with Larry Winget.
The very first book I ever read of yours, it wasn't the first one you wrote, but it's called Work for a Reason. You had some.
That's my best book.
That was your best-selling book or your favorite
No,
book?
that's just my best book. That's the book I think is my best book.
Well, great. That was the first one I read, and I guess it was all downhill from there. But no, I loved all of them after that as well.
My other books are good, but I think that was truly my most important book was my parenting book, Your Kids Are Your Own Fault. That's my most important. But my best book really it's called Work for a Reason. That's about work and how to be an employer and how to be an employee and how to sell and how to provide service and add value. And if people did the things in that book, because face it, a major portion of our life is tied up in work. And a major portion, certainly how we earn our money is tied up in our work. And if we got those things right, we would all be so much better off and we'd treat each other better and service would be better. So that's why I'm a big fan of that book. I think that's one of the best business books written, and not because I wrote it. It's just a great business book.
What is something in that book that's maybe counter to what most people think when they go to work or when they get a job?
I tell you, the dumbest thing being said right now, especially among entrepreneurs, and certainly something I take on in that book as well as most others, is this whole idea of you got to be passionate and that we are paid for our passion. That's the dumbest thing in the whole world. I don't care whether you like your job. I don't care whether you hate your job. You're paid to do your job, and you're certainly not paid for your passion. Passion is defined in the dictionary as a barely controllable emotion. I don't want a barely controllable emotion anywhere near my business. I want competence in my business. I want people to work hard in my business. And when I walk into your business, I want you to be hardworking and competent. I want you to understand I'm your boss, and your job is to serve me and serve me well and to bring value to my life when I walk in and there's an exchange of money. And if you don't do that, I'll take my money to somebody else. Nobody in the world has an exclusive on anything anymore. I can find what you got from someone else. So treat me right or I'll go somewhere else. And that book really focuses on adding value and working hard, and it gets past all this stupidity that people are running their businesses by, saying, I got to love what I do. No, you don't. If you love what you do, that's a bonus, but it has nothing to do with the customer. That's none of my business whether you're happy. None of my business whether you love what you do. You make sure I love the exchange of revenue that's about to take place. So when I lay down my money, I feel like I'm getting a whole lot more than I'm paying for. That's what business is about.
I feel like Bill Belichick of the New England Patriots probably read that book.
Maybe so.
He's always talking about do your job, and he's certainly quick to cut people if they don't do their job. But
yeah, and see, the trouble is we tell people you got to love what you do every single day. I don't love what I do every single day, and anybody who's working really hard is going to have lots of days they don't love what they do. It's a pain in the butt. I hate getting on airplanes and traveling. That's why I try not to do it as much as I used to. I hate it. Nothing fun about travel, but it's my job to do that sometimes. And so you suck it up, Buttercup, and just do it. Whether you like it or not, whether you feel like it or not, whether you're motivated or not, whether it makes you happy or not, somebody's paying you. So honor that.
Well, you said that It's Called Work for a Reason was your best book, but maybe your most important book was called Your Kids Are Your Own Fault, a Fix the Way to Parent Guide for Raising Responsible, Productive Adults. What can parents do to raise their kids in the best way and to make that book, to come true where that's the most important book?
The parenting book is the most important simply because it's a way that you can create responsible, productive adults. What parents have lost, it seems to me, is the basic understanding that as parents, you have one goal, only one goal. And that is to make sure your kids go away. When you have 34% of millennials living with their parents, you have failed as a parent. That's the way it is. Your job is to raise your kids in such a way that they can go away and be independent and earn their own way. And if they don't do that, then you were a lousy parent. So this book is about preparing your kids and how to prepare your kids so they can grow up, be independent, self-sufficient, and live on their own and not have to rely on you. And we're failing at that when we have a third of our millennials, 18 to 34 kids, though they are not kids. Those are grown adults. 18 to 34, you're an adult. When they live with their mom and daddy, and when you have 68% of boomers financially supporting their children in some way, we have failed. And that's what this book is about, is getting people to understand that you have to provide your children with the skills to really survive and thrive in the workplace.
So what do you say when people say, but Larry, you don't understand my situation?
There's always a but you don't understand. Yeah, I do understand your situation. You don't understand your situation. You need to take responsibility for the mess that you created. Nobody did this to you. Nobody did it to your kids. I hear it all the time, especially around this millennial thing, living at home. And what typically happens is then you have somebody, the father or the mother says they need to get out of here, but you got the other one, their spouse, saying, no, I love having them here. And what you end up is an enabler and somebody else. And then what happens is you end up destroying the marriage between the mother and the father because they are in conflict over the kids moving back in with them. And what these kids, again, they're adults, don't understand is they are depleting the mother and father's retirement accounts. And that's not fair to mom and dad. And they're doing a disservice. But they always have an excuse over that kind of stuff. And in fact, in every aspect of what I talk about, there are people who say, yeah, but you don't understand. Okay, fine. I don't argue with people at this point in my life. Really, life's too short, and I'm too old, and I'm too mean, and I'm too grumpy to argue with people who, if you want an excuse, you'll fight to find one. And if you want to hang on to it, that's your deal, not my deal. I don't care.
Have you ever thought about being a politician, and what would you be like?
Oh, my God, no.
What would you be like if you
I don't have any tolerance, but you got to be nice to people for that. I have no tolerance for that. I'm not good at that sort of stuff, and besides, it'd be a cut and pay. I'm not interested in that either.
Well, you've been very successful over the years, and you already mentioned, the one time when your job got cut. What would be, if maybe other than that, do you have a favorite failure that you've had or something that you've really had to overcome since then?
Probably I don't have a favorite failure, and I would say that it's the culmination and combination of all my failures that have made me who I am today. But I'll say this, when I lost everything I had, I mean everything, and I had to go bankrupt when my company went under, and that was an embarrassment and a humiliation, but that turned out, 40 years later to probably be the best thing that ever happened to me, because I went out and I worked my butt off to really get to where I am in this business and to put it all back together. So I really started to respect my own skills and what I had to offer. And that's when I also became a real learner. When I was going through a bankruptcy, I told my wife, I said, there's one thing that we still got to spend money on, and that's our own self-education, because the only way to get through this is for us to get better. And we have to get better. So I started reading, and in the last 35 years, I've read 5,000 books. And I don't know anybody who's read as many books as I have. And when you read 5,000 books, you can learn some stuff. And you'll learn a lot of things that make you more valuable in the marketplace and to other people. And that's what I suggest people do when they're going through something. Grab yourself a book and start listening to what other people have gone through, been through, and what they did to get through it.
What is your process for choosing which books you read?
Oh, I got a group of buddies that I trust, and, a couple of times a week, somebody will say, I'm reading this, and without question, every one of us will buy it, and then we'll read it, because I trust these guys, and if they say it's a good book, then I need to read that book. They do the same thing with things I recommend. And I read really, really fast, but I also read for intent, not for content. I think people get bogged down in the content. What's this guy really trying to say? That's what I always say. What are they really wanting me to learn? What's my one big thing I'm going to walk away with from this book? And I don't care how bad a book is, and I end up reading a lot of bad books. But every book has one thing I can learn. And what I typically do is I, take some notes and say, what's the one big thing I can learn from this book? And that's what I focus on, and that's what will stay with me.
Do you like to read biographies, self-help books, business books? Do you read all across the board?
Yeah, I read a lot of fiction. I think you can learn a lot from good fiction. Especially you can learn good writing from good fiction. When you do write books, you need to read good writing in order to just observe techniques and so forth. So the good writing is something people ought to pay attention to as well. But you can learn from about anything. I don't read much self-help anymore. I'm kind of over the motivational self-help stuff that people talk about because I think most of it's just truly a load of crap, so I don't pay much attention to that. Read a lot of business books. I do read a lot of biography, but there's a lot of good stuff out there right now.
Well, we mentioned that you hosted and starred on Big Spender on A&E. Is there a reality show that you would love to be on, or an idea that you have for a reality show?
I've shot 7 pilots since then. Dr. Phil and I hooked up for a while, shot a couple of pilots. And I tell you, if people understood, if the regular guy sitting on his couch watching TV understood how many show pilots are shot and don't make it, they would be amazed. They think, well, somebody just had an idea for a show and here it is on TV. No, that's not how it works. But if I were going to shoot a show that I'd like to do, in fact, I proposed this show before, it'd be called WTF. And everybody knows what that stands for. And it would just be about the stupidity. It's probably a lot like People Are Idiots and I Can Prove It, my book. Just the stupidity. When we hold a mirror up to the stupidity of the people in the world and the stupid things they do and the bad decisions they make, first of all, it's really funny, but I think there's some valuable lessons in there for folks who watch. The people who I worked with on Big Spender didn't learn a darn thing. I can tell you right now, when I went in and did an overhaul of their life and their finances, I can tell you most of them didn't do anything with it. But the people who watched the show learned a whole lot. And I still get a lot of emails from folks who said the show turned their life around and their finances around. So I would love to shoot a show where people could say, man, I'm bad, but I'm not that bad, and now I'm going to get better.
Larry, where can people connect with you or learn more about what's going on with you?
Listen, I'm the easiest guy in the world to find. I'm all over the internet. I've got one of the most interactive social media followings ever. They can go to Facebook and follow me on Larry Winget fan page. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I've got my own podcast called the Grow a Pair Podcast with Larry Winget. So I've got a lot of ways people can find me. Well, and they can go in any bookstore too, or go on my website, LarryWinget.com, and buy a whole library, buy them autographed individually, whatever they want to do.
Well, definitely, we'll put those in the show notes so people can connect with you easily. Sure. And go out and buy some books. Larry, appreciate your time. Know you're busy. Love your stuff. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. I hope that you enjoyed listening to Larry Winget. I absolutely love listening to him. He is not for the faint of heart, though. He essentially is telling us we need to take responsibility for our own actions. And I think that this is good advice for us to remember. Well, thanks so much for listening today, and we'd love it if you would share this episode with others. Someone else might like to hear from the Pitbull of Personal Development. Also, if you haven't yet done so, please take just a quick second to hit that little subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. Thanks again, and until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?